Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Starterpack Podcast. Today is a special day because we've got the main designer of like almost everything Skylanders related, I-Wei Huang.
Hello.
The
I'm
man
so
himself.
yeah, I'm so excited to get into this because again, I love art and he's an artist, so I look up to him, and I think it's just gonna be an exciting thing to get straight into. So, how was your guys' day?
Oh, it's been great. I did have work earlier, but it was all right.
It's Friday, so it's good.
Yeah, I got work tomorrow too, though. My work schedule's weird, but that's beside the point.
No, I'm sitting
I'm
here
not the
doing
focus.
nothing for the next couple of months because I'm not in school right now because I'm going the GED route. I want to kind of get this over with so I can go straight into college. And I feel like if I have college to kind of cover up the whole GED stuff, that should be a little bit better, but whatever. So I can't do it until I'm 16. I'm 15 right now. So I'm just sitting here waiting for my chance to be able to go do all that stuff. And I have a whole bunch of time on my hands now, so I started a podcast.
Yep.
Wow, that's awesome.
And other content creation stuff with Skylanders.
Yeah. So I mean, we could just start pulling questions now. Like, I've got how many? 74 different people.
Holy cow.
There,
I didn't even. What?
There is a lot of people who ask some really stupid questions. So I'm not going to be able to go through all of them, but I did go through and I picked out a couple of ones that I think would be really, really interesting to hear answers to.
The questions I get asked the most when I was getting interviewed for Skylanders was, who's your favorite and how do you get your ideas? Those are like guaranteed to that will always be asked.
I'll tell you, like,
Yeah.
I'm looking at one right now. What's his favorite Skylander is the top one.
Yeah.
Did you like? Oh, sorry.
For a long time, I wouldn't give a real answer, and to tell you the truth, it changes daily. Especially when I'm working on something, I get sick of a design, or I'm really excited about it, and then a few months later, it's like, it's all right. But I think one character that kind of captured the essence and that I really like because it felt like I kind of did it for me, and it broke all the rules and it still worked, was Chopper. I think Chopper is right now my favorite. It was supposed to be a giant, actually.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you the story real quick since you guys are kind of nuts.
Yeah.
So we had a designer, Nat, came over and said, just got an idea of like, what about a T-Rex with guns, like weapons? And so that kind of where it started. And I was working on giants at the time, and so I started just kind of sketching up some big T-Rex, but they just weren't. The T-Rex it's very long, right? Like there's a head, there's a long tail, and
Yeah.
we all know what it looks like, and there's just no way it will fit in a box. Like our box, right? Like, so I had to try to figure out how to draw it so it kind of curves the tail around and stuff like that. And so it didn't work for giants. And then later on, I brought it back. It's like I still like that idea. I'm a T-Rex, just dinosaur nut. I got a bunch of fossils, and I got T-Rex little figurines and stuff all over the place. Anyway, so I started drawing him as like, well, what if I like compacted in, would it still fit? And I just kind of went more and more and more, right? Until it's like that's the most compact form of a T-Rex that I can do. It's basically just a head, a little tiny nub of a tail.
Real quick.
Yeah. So that process was like, Skylander is like this chunky style, right? Everything's like really kind of beefy and chunky and kind of cute with a little
Yeah.
aggression to it, right? A little badassness to it, right? So I kind of did that, and then the weapon part of it is really important for the game, right? So I just started adding stuff in, and it was definitely too many notes, like because most of the Skylanders you can kind of look at and you can describe it in a couple words, right? Because it's really simple. Like you got to be able to look at this character and understand it like in a second, right? But Chopper was different. He's a T-Rex with the tongue hanging out. That's
Yeah.
and kind of crazy. But he's got a helicopter. He's got missiles. He's got a mech. It's like there's too many notes. Too much stuff going on. It just shouldn't work.
Like that
Yet
exoskeleton too.
right. Yet it worked. So I would say that's probably my favorite character. When I think about Skylanders, that's one of the top characters I think of.
Heck yeah, man.
And I'm trying to collect them all. This isn't Pokemon. I'm not trying to catch them all, but I like every single one. Even though I've like characters like Prism Break over Sprocket more. I really like each individual one because it feels like almost each individual one has the same amount of effort and passion put into them. And I find that there's some sort of like beauty in that. Even though I really don't like Sprocket, I feel like the design is awesome. I feel like that there was definitely effort put into it. It wasn't just something
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the whole idea, right? Like the main goal that I had was when you see this character on a shelf at Toys R Us, you gotta be able to like, Mom, I want that, and just grab your mom's like, I need that one, right? And so without a game, without gameplay, without a story, without anything, just book by its cover, like face value, you gotta like the character, right? So each character, that's the goal for every single character that Skylander toy that we designed, right? I think there's so many of them that there's got to be one of them that resonate, with you, right? Like
yeah.
there's just so many different
I
different
mean,
kinds.
there's
I'm
like
looking at the screen right now. It's been a while since I've thought about Skylanders. I'm looking at the screen of them right now, just kind of refresh myself. And it's like, wow, there's a lot of different
yeah, no,
kinds.
I've spent way too much to not care about this series anymore. But I mean, like I've got like all the posters or whatever that I always just look at. I've got the curtain over
Oh
there. Like
yeah,
I'm all dripped out for this.
wow,
Yeah.
Got
it's
everything.
amazing.
Not everything yet. I mean, I've even got some cool posters like Ratchet and Clank, stuff like that,
Mhm.
But I love just like whenever I'm talking about like figures and whatever, I just love looking up at that and being like, I don't have to remember them. I can just look at each individual one. So,
Yeah,
You
but
got your wall.
I feel like with Pokemon, there's just so many of them. Like you don't have to, how do I describe this? There's so many of them that you can just kind of pick one and resonate with it. Like one
yeah,
person's favorite might be like Drobot, one person's favorite might be like, Ghost Roaster, things like that because it appeals to different people and I feel like there's so much, diversity, I guess, with the characters that it can appeal to anybody.
right, right.
Absolutely.
I'm still looking at all of them, just like, wow.
I can show you some of the 3D prints I have here.
I think
All
I'm
right.
interested in that.
How do I switch my camera?
It should
There
be
it
like
goes.
yeah.
Let me show you that real quick before we finish the questions.
Alrighty.
Hopefully the
Oh
lighting's good enough.
Wow.
So
I've
you can
got a.
see some of the 3D prints here.
Oh wow. Oh, we got Arbo, the
Yeah,
Chompy.
that's the one that you guys are saying, like what you call it, like a sandstone.
Mm-hmm.
Those
This
are
this Chompy
beautiful.
was actually made by hand, and sculpted and cast in the very beginning of before we knew what we were doing. We had these little figurines basically with a RFID tag that we're using as portal. So that's the only one that
Absolutely.
I kept. You can kind of see this one is not a. This is what a Let me see. Nope, that's a 3D print. Here. This one is what it looks like before paint.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see all the parts. There's a lot of different parts to a character, as you probably know because you looked at the toys probably pretty carefully to see all the different parts. But yeah, we gotta try to keep the cost down with a number of parts, and then we try to do a really good paint job as much as we can afford. So yeah, a bunch of these.
Look at you with your. Oh,
got that guy.
Yeah, we got the big statue and everything.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those that were handed out to like different retailers and stuff.
Yeah,
but I see your Chompy Mage
3D...
and your Robo back there.
Yeah, the 3D prints are pretty cool. These so we started with that printer that prints color, but it's super fragile. I'm so surprised it's still in one piece right now. These are much better. They're much stronger, and they have all the detail we need. So we started with that, and then we ended up with this. Plus, we use software to generate the renders, so it looks photorealistic. Like probably from Giants on, all the pictures that you see are renders. They're not real photographs.
And even though they look really realistic.
Yeah.
Which is great. That's the whole point. And I don't know, just a great way to show off the detail of the models and stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some 3D prints I thought you guys might like to see.
Oh, absolutely. I'm all about 3D printing stuff. I've got one going on right now. You can see that over there.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
That thing is like the best $200 I've ever spent. Maybe except one of the Skylanders.
Yeah, our 3D printers at the time, this is 15 years ago when we first started doing this. They were so expensive and they were so finicky. We had so many problems with the printers all the time.
Yeah, and also what probably didn't help with all the pricing was it was like companies selling things to other companies, so they just jack up the prices like crazy.
Yeah, but we needed it. I mean, it was well worth, in the end. But I just remember trying to buy a printer back then before it got really popular. It was just so few choices and so expensive.
Yeah, and also the lack of software for it.
Yeah, we had our main machine that printed out those gray ones was still using a Windows NT machine, and it needed. That's like all it supported, so we had to have an old machine that's dedicated for printing. So stuff like that is just it's just crazy.
Wait, okay. Now you got me intrigued with that. So with that, do you know if it was a special version of NT that was developed specifically for that? Like, it's a modified version?
No, just regular Windows NT, but the software only runs on NT, and they just never upgraded or whatever, never supported it. And it worked, so we just needed to get an old machine.
That's bizarre. The fact they never updated it, they never even made it work with just regular versions of Windows. They specifically made it for workstations. I think
the printer was something like 90 grand or something like that. It was so much money, and we had to go buy a stupid old computer to run it.
Bro, that sounds like the price of one of those old Silicon Graphics workstations from back then. That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, hey,
that's too much money.
Best thing is you guys were given the budget to work with that, and that helped a lot with design figures. So
yeah, it definitely streamlined everything. Yeah, I mean, I can go more into the manufacturing side of it, but it definitely helped us get all the problems worked out before we start actually, prototyping in the factories and get the assembly line going. You just want to make sure everything is perfect, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I just want to see where they made those. I mean, I want to see all the machines going into all of the figures and just creating them all. I want to go there and just that factory smell.
It's not what you think it is. Let me just put it that way. It's all hand done, like 98% of it. It's all handmade.
The figures?
Even though there's technology to like press stuff and do stuff, it's much cheaper, right, to just have humans paint eyeballs. I mean, they have masks and templates and stuff like that, but it's mostly hand done by people. To create machinery that can do everything, it's possible, but it would cost so much money to do that for a small run of toys. So yeah, when you see the factory, it's not what you think. It's just a whole bunch of people, gluing stuff together. It's crazy.
So I can blame somebody in China for all the mistakes on this figure, right?
Oh, it's even worse than that. Oh, hold on one second.
Oh,
he's getting something.
He's getting something. You get to. Oh my gosh.
Oh, my camera smooths.
That's insane.
So this is a good example of this is it's a sign sample, right?
Yeah.
That means that this is the perfect chopper that I've signed off on that the factory uses to make the rest of them, right? So this is as good as it gets. And the problem is that basically when you see a eyeball like that with the little black dot, it's a mask that they put over it with a hole right there, and then you just kind of paint that area, right? Well, they have to clean the mask, and the mask gets worn out over time, kind of stuff. So the first run of the toys are way better than the last run, right?
Yeah.
By the time you get to 100,000 of these, the last one is just not going to be as good. And also, we pay attention to the first batch, right? Then we just kind of trust that they're going to make things look good. The problem is there's so many, and it drives me nuts, is that so many of the characters are wonky with their eyes, like, it's like, oh my God, that changes everything. It goes from a serious, cool character to like a
goofy,
derpy.
Yeah.
Some characters are great, but other characters, you can't do that. So that's the one thing I just always tell them, like, that's the most important thing, eyes. Like, we need the eyes to be perfect. And of course, probably like the first 100,000 of that toys probably was pretty good. And then it gets worse and worse. And I've definitely, walked through, Toys R Us or Target or whatever, and just look at the toys and go, oh my God, what have they done?
No.
And then like try to contact them, and it's like, hey, you guys gotta, so it's a mess. It gets more and more like messy. The paint gets like oversprayed into different areas, and fades. If you have a soft fade, it might be like a really strong, it's not soft enough, it should be a really subtle thing. So stuff like that would definitely, we try to do our best on the art end. And the factory can only do so much, right? We can't like catch them all. But we definitely been really hard on them because it's not just one factory. There's like probably 6 factories, I think. And so we had to make sure each one of them is like, no, QA, you gotta do a better job,
All right, start writing down those factory names. We got to go visit them, Jesse. You got to pay him a visit.
Yeah, but that's also if I-Wei is allowed to share it.
Nah, I was just joking.
Oh, yeah. Whoops.
The factories are really big too. I mean, they don't just make Skylanders toys. Obviously, they make toys for everything, and so they're like little cities. They're just humongous.
That's interesting.
Your competition, Disney Infinity, was that ever in the same factory?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm gonna guess yes.
I'm pretty sure they're in their little cubicles doing their thing, and they look over and they give each other just mean looks like, oh, ours is gonna be better. Oh, and I mean, it was.
How about that?
Maybe a little biased, but I think Skylanders was the better one.
Yeah.
All right, I think it's time to pull some community questions.
Let's do it.
Ooh, here we
So
go.
we've got favorite Skylander, Chopper, right?
Yeah.
The current favorite, yeah.
It'll change tomorrow. It'll take a couple business
Probably.
days.
Well, now that I'm looking at this, I like this character a lot too.
Head rush.
Head rush.
Yeah, we kind of mentioned this earlier before we started recording, but I have internal names for some of these characters, or don't remember their names, so I'm gonna have to help me out with their
Well, you've
real
got
names.
characters like Crypt King, right? And I find him very fascinating because he's been through a lot of different names. One of the ones I'm pretty sure was King Cut,
Yeah,
which I kind of like that name a little bit more. But then there's Chop Chop Daddy. Now,
that's the one that you use. Yeah.
that one's the best one. Like, I can't go into a store and not see Chop Chop Daddy. Like,
That's kind of, he was one of the earlier giants trying to
Mhm.
figure out what a giant is. And so one of the first things I did was him and just like, well, okay, I like Chop Chop. What if he's big, you know? And so I started designing something that feels like from the same universe, you know, and what it would look like if it's really, really, really big. So that's why I call him Chop Chop Daddy.
I mean, it makes sense.
yeah, so we were talking about like reverse engineering earlier, and we got those alpha builds, and we can see some of like the early concepts for those characters, like, Chop Chop Daddy, back when he was a magic element as opposed to undead. And it's really cool to see, where they started to where they are, because Snapshot was also planned to be a giant's core, right?
Which one?
Crocodile with the bow and arrow.
Oh yeah. He was supposed to be what?
A giant's core.
I don't remember, to tell you the truth. I don't think he was a giant.
I just mean like one of the
Or
roster.
core character.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think so. It's a bit blurry for me, but yeah, that would make sense that we started it. Yeah, back then.
Yeah. You could definitely see the weird, like, in between from, like, all the Toys for Bob games and the Vicarious Vision stuff. Because, like, I feel like
Yeah.
Giants put so much on the table, and I feel like Trap Team tried to grab all of it and make sense of it, I guess.
hmm
Because you've got a lot of characters from, like, Giants that were, cut or planned or whatever, and then you explore those characters in Trap Team.
Yeah, I mean, we had a 2-year, cycle, right? So when we roll off one game, we roll right into the next one. So sometimes a character that's like didn't work, for the last one, like we try to reuse it or figure out, that's kind of what I was talking about with this guy, right? Like he was going to be a giant and then end up being a little dude. So stuff like that. I mean, I just had a lot of ideas and concepts around, and then a lot of times I kind of go revisit stuff from, that I worked on like a year ago or 6 months ago or whatever, and pull it back. It's like, I remember that guy. Like, can we now with a fresh look, like trying to figure out how to make it better so that it can be a Skylander.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see like a timeline where all of those characters ended up releasing for Giants and different characters for Trap Team. I wonder how differently they would have been. I mean, things like Chopper or just a dinosaur character as a giant, as you were saying, wasn't making sense because it's a big creature that you'd have to put in such small packaging, with it making it look all fierce and menacing and appealing to the demographic, you know.
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge, and the I feel like the later games, the characters got better, but it was harder. So all the good ideas are used up. All the, you know, by by the first game, like by the time we roll into Giants, it's like, what am I gonna do? Like I've used up all the ideas. So then you kind of reach out for the unusual ideas, right? Like the harder to find ideas, and so yeah, it was always a real challenge.
Yeah. I do see like I don't know. I maybe it's just me, but like the Giants characters feel like sometimes they belonged in SSA and they all kind of match in that like 2 game bubble. Like they feel right in that if that makes sense. I'm trying to make sense of how I'm phrasing this, but
You mean the first 2 games, the characters feel like they're more cohesive together
yeah.
than the other? I'll talk. I know why. uh, because basically the first 2 games it was just me.
Mhm.
By the time we got Trap Team Imaginators, I had help. I had more concept artists working with me on the characters. So
Yeah.
Trap Team was still just me designing the Skylanders, but I handed off a lot of the enemy designs and bosses and stuff to other concept artists and kind of train them up to kind of figure out what a Skylander is. So by the time we got into Imaginators, it was they were designing Skylanders with me.
Heck
Cool.
yeah, man.
So that's probably why the first 2 kind of felt like it was just my style,
Mhm.
only kind of thing.
No, I really like that style, and I've been looking through, and I swear I'll get to these questions eventually, but I've been looking through like old stuff that you did, and I've noticed a lot of the steampunk stuff, and all
Yeah.
of the like steam powered or just different sorts of like little machines that you would do, and I was trying to
Yeah.
look through and be like, okay, what's a character that would almost match that? Because that's stuff that you did, and the only one that really comes to mind is like Drill Sergeant.
Yeah. Um, it's funny that whole the technology of Skylanders was basically it's a fantasy, right? It's a fantasy game, fantasy world, but it had technology, but the technology is either low tech or is magical. The power is from magic, right? So like Drobot is basically a cyborg dragon kind of. Is that his name, Drobot?
Drobot, yep.
Yeah.
Dragon? Yeah, okay. Is basically a cyborg dragon, right? But the glowing parts and stuff, like it felt like almost like more armor than robot. And who knows what it is, right? Like I don't even know, but it definitely feels a bit magical, a bit low tech. So anything that's too high tech, we kind of felt like it didn't quite belong. So it's natural for steampunk to be part of it, right? Steampunk is also a lot of steampunk has this like really ornate design, right? The Victorian era designs, and a lot of the steampunk also, at least for me, when I design them, I incorporate like armor, right? Like old armor into it with like scroll work, kind of stuff. So like it the whole thing needed to look chunky and stuff. So I try to like add in some of the like when we needed. I remember designing some trains and stuff in the for probably SSA, maybe Giants. I don't remember now, but I remember designing some contraptions and stuff. And whenever there's a robot, I try to kind of dumb it down to easier to digest and a little bit more on the old tech side than the high tech side. And if there's high tech, I usually try to add in something that feels a bit magical or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chop Chop, right? Like what the heck is that? Like who knows, right? Like, but it's like kind of armor and there's some organic bones to him, but you're not quite sure what it is,
I'll tell you what it is. It's an Archean.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I really like the Archeans, and I know a lot of people who really like how the Archeans came out to be, and a lot of people really wish that there was more story with them, I guess, because it's a
Yeah.
very interesting like concept, I guess. And in a way, like when you look at Skylanders in like the modern day, right? I mean like modern as in like, present day Skylanders, right? I'm trying to like think
Yeah.
in the game, right? Present day in the game. And then you look at like 10,000 years ago in the game, and honestly like the technologies just seem so different, but they seem so similar, because you've got
Yeah.
things like you've got your Conkertrons running around, but then you've got Drill Sergeant running around in the present day, and they just feel so like they're almost the same time period.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't actually design any of the story side of it. I try not to have any influence to both the game designers, story people, the animators. I don't try to tell them like, oh, this character moves like this and got this personality and this backstory is A, B, C, D, E. I don't do any of that. Number one, I don't have the time to. Number two, I'm not good at it, and there's professionals that are way better at it than I am. That does a great job at at TFP. It was the moons are lined up. It was perfect. So it was really great to like just hand off a design. Just like when they come and ask, like, what is this character? What is it? It's like, I don't know. Make it up. Like, and then be able to like 6 months later play the game and go, oh, there he is, cool. And then finally see for the first time personality and and having a backstory and all that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the Archeans, the reason I brought that up is it's not something that I had in mind. It was just a style, and that's probably why Drobot and Drill Sergeant and there's like certain characters that kind of feel similar. Well, because I kind of designed them to be that way, and then the story was kind of added on later.
Yeah. All right, I think it's time to finally get into questions. So,
All right,
no more getting distracted.
let's go.
But that's the fun thing about this, we're not professionals.
Yeah.
Speed run, let's go.
Yeah. So, these first couple of questions come from my good friend Skylander. And the first one is, are there any Skylander designs you dislike?
Ooh.
Of mine?
Yeah.
I dislike a lot of them. There's different dislikes, right? There's the dislike that this character didn't do well, right? Like it didn't sell well. So I missed the mark with the audience, right? So there's that kind of dislike. It's just like it didn't do what I thought it was gonna do because I try to make every one of them cool. And then there's just the dislike where when I look back, especially now, I look back and it's like, oh, I should have spent more time designing something more compelling. There's not enough of it's too weird or something, So I'm looking at a bunch of images of Skylanders right now. Oh, there's that guy, the rock guy that's rolling on the ball.
Rocky
Oh,
Roll?
Rocky Roll, yeah.
I felt like he was a little. I don't know. I guess that I probably would want to do something like redesign him in some more compelling way or something like that.
Yeah.
So that would be one that I would say I wouldn't say I dislike. I just thought I could do better.
Yeah.
For example, let me see any other characters.
You've got almost 200 to pick from.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The lightning guy, Zeus, whatever his name is. Lightning Rod. That's another one I thought I probably should have done something a little bit more. Like a lot of the characters in the first game, I felt like was he in Giants or was he?
He was in both
SSA?
of them. He originated from SSA.
Yeah, in SSA, I think a lot of the characters are a little bit more generic, there was sorry, I forgot the name again. The Griffin character.
Sonic Boom.
Sonic Boom is just a little too straightforward. I thought I should have probably gave it a little bit more of a twist. So in the first game, there was a lot of characters that were just a little bit straightforward, which I guess people liked. But for me as a designer, I think I wanted to kind of give it a little something different.
Yeah. Speaking about like kind of like that roster of characters, I keep getting this question. I feel like everybody wants to know this. Why was Sunburn done so dirty? He only had one figure ever made and then was never seen again. Before we find out the answer to this question that everybody's been asking for the past 15 years at this point, have you guys subscribed yet? I mean, I spent a long time trying to get everybody together for this. Not only that, but everybody's mics were off, so throughout the whole thing, I had to adjust manually everybody's mic in post-edit, and this sucks. I wish I could just continue to just say stuff, and it's perfect, alright? I did it a little bit of an oopsie this time, alright? And I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. So now I have to go through and suffer because of my actions. And if you feel bad, you should still subscribe. If you don't feel bad, you should still subscribe. Like, we are this close to 2,000 subs. I think we can do it pretty soon. And I mean, you know what I mean? More Skylanders because I make more ad revenue. You already know. But yeah, I guess back on with it. Please subscribe.
It didn't perform. I don't remember if it was too expensive as well. Some, like we had a budget, right? Like the characters had to stay within budget. I don't believe it was over budget, but I believe it just didn't sell. So like, the reposes characters, I absolutely hated doing those. I did not want to do any reposes ever.
Really?
Yeah, it was such a pain to do, such a waste of time for me because I want to make new stuff rather than.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
I know the audience, when they love a character, they want another version, right? But we can't just put it in another pose. Like, Activision is like, well, that's not enough. We can't sell this. It's just a different pose of the same exact thing. So then we needed to give them something special, both in the game and as a figure. We need to make it look premium, whatever that means. And so it's hard to make something premium. Like, what do? You make bigger sword, or sword is fancier or something, right? The armor is different. You tagging on stuff. But then you do that a few times and it's like you're just out of ideas. It's like, I remember Trigger Happy, right? Like you went through so many of those, and by the end, it's like, what do you do? Like, I want to put him in a giant gold battleship or something. It's like, because I don't know what else to do, right? So I think some of the figures suffer because of that, because we needed to upgrade them every single time. So for me, I did not enjoy that process at all because it just sucked up so much time.
Yeah.
Because each toy just requires so much energy once you start prototyping, and So I'd much rather if we didn't have to do those.
That's very cool. I understand where you're coming from with that.
I do kind of like some of the like later series characters, and kind of like those reposes are something that people want to talk about, especially with Trap Team, because Gilligrunt was the only series 4. But I wanted to okay, now my brain just completely like and I don't know what I was saying.
Come on, man. No.
It just reset.
To finish the answer about Sunburn is just, I believe at the time it just was one of the worst selling characters, so it just never
took off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a few. in SSA, we were new to, like, none of us has ever made toys before, so it was quite a learning curve. So we learned a lot, and by the time we got to Giants, I think we started doing better, and then I think by the Trap Team, we knew what we were doing. But in the first game, I remember Dino Rang was the most expensive character ever on any of these games. And it was way, 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 way over budget, and we just, kept it. SSA had the budget for the characters, the toys were higher than once we got to Giants, we started like limiting, and it was really hard to do. But so Sunburn, I don't think that one was way over budget, but Dino Ring definitely was, and there was a few other characters that felt like, yeah, it was over budget. So it was hard to kind of, do those sometimes, because by the repos, it's like, well, now you got to add more stuff, and then you got to cut back on the paint job. It was difficult.
Yeah. Kind of on the topic of like just the SSA roster, I found this question from one of my friends, Folia, who asks kind of like, I think, two questions in the same question, if that makes sense. But he says, does Voodoo have hair or a really large forehead? His concept art suggests hair, but in his game model says forehead.
I love these questions. The answer is I don't know. I never thought of it that far.
That makes
Voodoo was one of those characters that didn't go through a lot of revisions. Going back to characters I didn't like, I think that was another character that's another character that I didn't like that much. I know a lot of people really love that character, and yeah, I don't know what's behind the skull, or if he's got a big forehead or a lot of hair. Yeah, it's whatever you think it is.
He's not gonna like that answer.
About that, the funny thing about that character, I think it was him that had the long staff that had a big
the battle axe.
Yeah. It was drooping. Like, that droop was so difficult. I don't know if you got any of the toys around, but we have to.
I've got them all. So let's take a look here. Let's take a look at Voodoo.
So the characters, of course, are made out of plastic, right? And the plastic has weight, and that you can see there's a curve.
Yeah.
We wanted that perfectly straight, but there's too much weight at the end of it, and that small amount of plastic wasn't going to hold that weight over time, so it droops over time, and that drove me nuts. And there was just nothing we can do. We asked if we can stiffen the plastic, but then it's a hazard, right? Like, so plastic, if it's too hard, then you can poke yourself with it, right? Now the poking hazard.
Yeah, I love doing that. I especially loved setting landmines around my house for my parents to step on. So.
Another thing with plastic, I have one here. So this, right? This clear plastic was so difficult. This took us forever to be able to do the traps and the trap team stuff, because the first round of these came back, and they in prototype form, and they were just smoky. They weren't clear. You can't see through it. It was just really foggy. And this one's not too bad. Yeah, this one's pretty good. So in order to get this kind of clarity, where you can at least see through, you can see through my finger, right? At least to be able to do that, it needs to be slower. There's a heat. So plastic injection, as you can imagine, is two parts, right? And you just melt plastic and you inject into it, and then you open the thing, and then you get the part. Like a model kit, right? Like, that's plastic injection. So in order to get this, it has to be slower. The heat had to be lower, and then when it injects it, it takes longer, and then it opens and then comes out, right? So the whole process, that means that this costs more.
Yeah.
right? Because now you're adding extra, however 20% more time or whatever it is, and everything adds up. So the trap stuff, the clear plastic was difficult to do. That we just didn't know, So we wanted to be like crystal clear, right?
Hmm.
And but yeah, it came back just foggy.
Yeah, no, you talk about that foggy, and it makes me kind of think of Prison Break. I feel like
Yeah.
he kind of had that like fogginess to it, but I don't know if that was like more so intentional or anything.
It was not intentional, and it depends on the batch that you get to. Some of them
Hmm.
would be clearer than others. Just again that run of however many toys that were made, it changes over time, right?
Yeah.
QA just wasn't able to catch all that. But Prison Break, I'll tell you a little secret. Prison Break is the MVP of Skylanders. Prison Break did so much for the franchise. It's not even funny. Prison Break's arm
Really?
is the trap. If you look at it,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I used to put him in the portal all the time. I was like, why isn't this working? I used to put his hand in the portal all the time.
That's great.
so we
Yeah.
prototyped a whole bunch of different ways to do what a trap is, and then when we decided on the crystal idea, um, we tried a bunch of different crystal. I drew up a whole bunch of things. We 3D printed a whole bunch of things, and in the end, it was just like I literally cut off his arm because we got a bunch of these kind of prototypes, right?
Yeah.
And just cut up his arm, and then we just started like adding, and having the trap team and having Lightcore. That was the first one we did, was right into his arm, right? Like
Yeah.
I
Well,
literally took the thing and drilled a hole into it and stuck a light in it, to test.
yeah, no, I was looking at this interview yesterday, and yeah, Prison Break came up about, obviously he was like one of the first ones, but how you were intrigued by it, and now you just start drilling holes in all your characters now, trying to see which areas you would add lights.
Yeah,
And I
all the ones
was
with clear parts. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on a stream with another Skylanders YouTuber, and we were talking about like if any characters that didn't get Lightcore variations, where like if they did get Lightcore variations, where would it be? And characters like Chop Chop came up with like his eyes, right?
Yeah.
And although that would be cool and all, now you're having to do like what, four tiny little lights in his tiny little head. I'm not calling him dumb, but his tiny little
Yeah.
head. But then, you can always find different areas, that don't even make sense or that make sense. You just gotta twist it, right? So, my idea was like run it through his sword, right? Because he has that ghost sword or whatever, where it all glows purple or whatever. Make it like a transparent fade from like that gray plastic to like a purple thing. Run a light in there. That would be cool.
That would be really cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they
We
should
did
start hiring me.
experiment when you're talking about the eyes thing. So we did experiment with Lycord and Giants and our trap team. A lot of the characters, we tried light piping, which is you take one light
Yeah.
and split it into different areas. That never worked out really well. It just kind of dim, like if you have two eyes and you run it from one source, kind of dims it a bit.
Mhm.
And also, like we found out from, I think it was Ninjini, someone had glowy eyes.
Yeah, that was
One of the
Ninja.
characters that had the glowy eyes, that the LED we need is so bright to be able to light up the eyes that would light up the face.
Hmm.
So then we had to paint the
Yeah.
face twice. So it's still low. There's still a bit of light bleed, but it's a lot less, right? Like,
Yeah,
so stuff like that is just like there's so much to consider that you just don't know until you start prototyping, and then you find all kinds of issues.
yeah.
Yeah.
This next question's kind of funny because you already have Head Rush on standby. So Folia also asks if she is an elf or any of the unnamed species in Skylands.
That's this character,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She's an elf. At least I imagine her to be an elf. Uh, you know, she was actually a goat. Yeah, I
Interesting.
have old concept art, which is literally a goat with crystal horns, right? And then that was just dumb. So I decided to make it to a helmet. And then I went with the elf design. And just like, well, if it's the horn suggests that you're gonna charge, right? So it's got to be a beefy elf, But I didn't want to do a male character, so that's how she became. I do like, this is one of the characters I do like a lot. Now looking back, yeah, there's still some like elf, I mean goat elements. I don't know if you noticed, but the shoes are actually hoofs. Like there's like a little hoof design, like little suggestion of it, right? There's like a lot of subtle things like that that we do.
Yeah, no, as of yesterday, Jesse is now the proud owner of a head rush as
I
well.
bet, yeah.
So all of us got our head rushes. No, I really like the character. Like, a lot of people don't like her because she's just not good in the game. I do think the whole like horn aspect is really like cool, and I think like a goat character would have been pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, at least the way I drew it was just dumb. It was just, I just looked at it and like, this is silly.
But then you show
But
it to like me, and it's gonna be the most beautiful thing ever.
yeah, but I really like because the reason that she came about is after so many crystal weapons that you can do, right? Like you just kind of run out of ideas. Like you can't do another crystal sword, So you start trying to come up with more unique ideas. So that was the idea. The crystal horns, I think, was strong, and it was a cool twist to it.
Yeah, no, I'm looking because I got like all the trap masters down here, and I'm like, all of them feel so similar and unique because you got characters that like, Gear Shift has the giant crystal gears, and those are really
Yeah.
interesting. And one of my
Yeah.
favorites, Shortcut, has a ginormous pair of scissors that's all crystally and stuff. That I love Shortcut. But yeah,
That one was I'll give you a little. That one gave us a lot of issues.
Really?
If you notice, he's kind of tipsy. He can fall over fairly easily, and that's by design.
Oh,
For safety, because it's those points are pointing straight up and they're fairly hard.
yeah.
So yeah, we want to make sure that no kid gets hurt. So that was one of the things that we
it wasn't
did.
the kids that were getting hurt. It was because these were landmines. It was the adults that were getting hurt.
Yeah.
the adults.
Yeah, I
We
have
were
so many
constantly getting
memories.
hurt ourselves when we 3D print them. The edges are razor sharp. I mean, you can literally slice a piece of paper with those scissors, easily. They're just razor sharp because the resolution is so high on those 3D prints.
All right, let's.
And so we're cleaning them. We're constantly cutting ourselves with them.
All right, can we cut paper with the scissor? Probably not now, but
Not with those, because those are yeah, those are plastic.
Yeah. Also, the plastic, like the plastic on those is pretty soft with the Tractanium stuff.
Yeah. Also, it gets rounded off. So when we 3D print it, we make it perfectly sharp. And then for safety reasons, they round it off. But if we round it off and then get a prototype, it'll be even rounder. So it's like, so we had to make them super sharp, like as sharp as possible. It was that character in Trap Team, the lion with a shield.
yeah, Wildfire.
All those points on the back of the head, we had to file down. Because especially when we were showing people, like showing CEO of Activision, like we didn't want him to get cut. Yeah. All those points in 3D print were razor sharp, and there were just so many of them, so it was so difficult to cut. We had to actually file them down a bit.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna start building my collection of things that I talked about with I-Wei. I've got like a collection going. I got Chopper, we got Voodoo. We're building a collection over here. And I feel like we're kind of on the topic. So somebody named Maddox Reddish asked, what was the hardest Skylander to sculpt?
Not sure what the person means by sculpt.
Design, I guess.
Yeah.
There's design on my side. There's sculpting on the modeler side, and then there's sculpting on the toy side.
Right.
So
I
I'm not
assume
sure
they mean
what.
like the toy, like getting the poses
That would
right.
be the character. So the most difficult for me means the most expensive that we need to get within budget.
Yeah.
And that was definitely the character that that had the hawk, the character with the hawk. I don't remember his name. It was in Trap Team, I think.
Well,
Maybe
Airstrike.
Imaginator.
Airstrike was an
No, it must be
Imaginators.
Imaginator.
Mm-hmm. I
The
don't
little
have
guy
that
with
one.
okay.
Yeah,
The
so
little guy with the hawk was so expensive. There was too many parts to him. We just couldn't get the cost down, and then I think he had like a lot more armor before. We had to like actually reduce that to get it within cost, and it was still over budget. There were just so many things on him that made it almost impossible to make within reason. That we just didn't even really think about when it was being designed. It didn't look that bad, but like when it actually got to the toy prototyping process, they just came back with, I look at spreadsheets like basically all day long when doing that. And you look at the spreadsheets, it's like there's just no freaking way I can balance this out to anything that makes sense. So he suffered a lot. We had to cut so much off of him.
no,
Because
he's
basically when you can't paint it, so in a toy, if you can't afford to paint something, if it's all black, it looks fine. The lighter it is, the more you realize, oh, that part's not painted. It looks weird, right? So luckily he was pretty dark for the most part, but then we just couldn't paint a lot of the trim, gold trim and stuff around him that we wanted to. And so then at some point, just like, well, we should probably just remove the part or something, right? Like, he had more stuff on him that we had to remove. And I think on the Hawk, too.
Yeah.
all right. The next one would be, what would be your best memory making the characters across the years?
I think the thing is, I wouldn't say a particular memory. There were some. I think it was just mostly. I wish I had appreciated the amount of talent that was in one place there, and how everything was just lined up perfectly for us to make the games all the way through from in the very beginning. Once we settled on toys and stuff, Robert Leyland was a programmer that had an interest in electronics. So he's like, "Oh, I think I can wire this up. I can make a little tag and this and that, and like we can prototype this." And he just did it. And then we had Paul Ritchie, who ran the studio. He was a D&D guy, right? Like, and one of his hobbies was casting toys. That little uh, chumpy thing that I showed you was sculpted and cast, and it was because he knew how to cast. So I learned a lot from him on making silicone molds and casting plastic and painting them and gluing them together, kind of thing. And because of that, we could actually prototype it and show different people, Activision and Toys R Us or whoever. So there was that part of it, and then there's like I wasn't a character designer. I was an animator, a modeler, animator. I did some character design when it's needed, but that wasn't my main job. I've done a bit over the years. So then everyone was designing characters and trying to define the look of the game, like all the artists, right?
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, I got really lucky. Paul Ritchie kind of saw what I was doing and said, "Me and you, let's figure this out." So I worked really closely with him in the very beginning, and actually all the way through. So what I'm trying to say is that there's like all these talent that just happen to be in one place,
Yeah.
that were amazing. And that's probably, I wish I had appreciated it more at the time. And I definitely appreciate it now. And so when I think of fond memories of the time, that's what I think of. It's like, man, we had some, like I said, I would design character. I don't know what it does, what the backstory is, how to move, what the personality is. I just kind of give it, and then knowing that it's going to come back perfect. It's going to be way better than I can ever imagine. That's not easy, right? Or that's a lot of faith in the team, and because we had just an amazing team.
Yeah. And, you're kind of talking about all the talents in one place, and that's why I really like have an appreciation for Toys for Bob then and even now. Like I feel like I don't know how they managed to get everybody in one place. And, it's such an inspirational area. And I also, we talked about this before we recorded, the whole tiki pirate kind of like thing. It kind of
Yeah.
motivates you and stuff like that, like I don't know, there's just this charm to them that like they're definitely no like evil corporation. They're they all seem like I've talked with a lot of people from there, and all of them seem like really good people, and it only makes me want to meet everybody, makes me want
Yeah.
to go there. Like, I was watching this interview. It was more so just like a random video between Skylander boy and girl, and you. That's somebody I'm trying to get on the podcast too. We're trying to get everybody here, right?
Yeah.
But like seeing them run through the studios and stuff, I'm like, man, it should have been me.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been great. Um,
Yeah. I mean, at the time, when Spyro's Adventure came out, I was 2, right?
oh my God.
I know. I
Wow.
know.
So how did you discover this then? Like,
So if I remember correctly, so my mom was always a fan of Spyro, so, and Spyro's Adventure, so, like, that was already there. The whole gimmick of you can have the toy, and then you can play as the character, and I mean, I kind of want to bring this up, so, I went to Utah last week, and I showed my 4-year-old brother Skylanders for the first time, and I mean, rest in peace, my mom's wallet, because it's never turning back. But then you've got like just seeing his face light up whenever the toy light up, like just the magic. It was there, and they didn't even care about playing. They kept on like putting the new character on, taking it off, putting another character on, just watching it pop up, and it was like even for me back then, it was so magical. And unfortunately, I don't get that now because I understand how all the technology works, right?
right.
I took a sledgehammer to Tree Rex one time, and I got the little tag out.
That's difficult. That's not easy.
That's why I said I took a sledgehammer to him.
Yeah.
I cut down the tree.
Yeah.
But I just there's definitely that magic to it. And I don't know, like even now it's hard to describe, but just there's so much
Well, I
magic
was
with it.
I was telling you like I literally hand sculpted in Sculpey some of the a set of characters, and we cast them and made like at one time I think we had like maybe close to 10 sets of these characters that we can test that on the portal.
Yeah.
Um, and they're all gone now. I have no idea who had them because every time it goes out, like, oh, Activision needs to show Toys R Us or whatever, and it just never comes back. It just doesn't come back because they just go, oh, this is the coolest thing, and they just
And then
keep it.
you look around
And
online, then some random collector has it, and you're like,
yeah, probably. But the portal moment, the what
the
we call the
magic
magic
moment.
moment, is so important to show in real life. There's just absolutely nothing you can do to describe that. because we didn't know. Like, on paper, it's like, oh, yeah, it'll be kind of cool. But when you actually do it, that process of doing it, it does feel magical, right? The first time you see it, it's like, whoa. And so
Yeah.
and it's really easy to get and easy to understand and see, right? And so we absolutely needed to show that instead of just telling someone in the Word doc or even some, concept art what that is, because like you just have to experience it. So
Right. And I mean, I kind of talked about, with mine and Jesse's project, we got portals working. And even though I know how all the technology works, seeing our work go into it and seeing, the character pop up on our screen, right? Like it almost was just as magical as when, I was super young and putting it on for the first time. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, it was almost the same magical feeling.
Right.
I don't know how to describe it, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
Next question. A lot of these questions, because how I phrased the community post, it was, hey, I'm having other developers on as well. So, a lot of these are, for people like Fred Ford, Dan. I don't know how do I don't know, Dan Gerstein.
Gerstein.
Gerstein. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll remember that now, because I always forget how to pronounce his last name. Those two are ones that we're having on in the future. But
Cool.
while I'm looking for stuff, Jesse, you have any questions?
I have not thought of anything yet.
Surely you can think of something.
Probably, but nothing's came to mind yet.
Nah, like I was so excited for this. I was like, dude, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get to the community stuff, because I'm just like so many thoughts rushing through, my mind. Like, oh, I've got so many questions. I got so many this and that. You know.
Speaking of Portal, I'll share something with you guys that I don't know if any of the community people discover this. Probably have by now. When you put a portal when one portal is plugged in, you put another portal next to it. You can read the character.
Yep.
And the Lightcore works on that second portal. And Robin and I did an experiment one time. I think it was 7. You can put 7 portals back side by side by side by side, and the 7th one will still light up a character. It's crazy.
I actually have a picture of me plugging in all of my portals. So yeah, I've tinkered around with that kind of stuff too, and it's funny you mentioned that. That's one of the memories that I have when I was younger, because I remember putting 2 portals right next to each other and being like, whoa.
Yeah.
Why is this it's not even plugged in?
Right.
But, I've torn apart a portal before, and I saw like the copper circle
Copper
thing.
ring, yeah.
Yeah, that
That's all it is.
Yeah, and I feel like just that extra copper circle just boosting that energy.
Yeah.
But
it's great.
I really like the
Yeah.
technical side of all this. I really like the art of it. That's why I have such an appreciation for like everything.
Yeah.
Because so many good talents went to use on this, and I'm just, yeah, I feel like this is like one of those miracle games almost.
Yeah, I feel like the technical side of it, the portal, is a big copper ring, and then the tag is just basically circuit of rings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, and they have to be on the same plane. Like it wouldn't work like this, right? So if this on the portal, it wouldn't work this way, right? Like it has to work this way.
Mm-hmm.
So if it falls over, you're out of the game, right? Which is actually really cool. When I remember playing with my son when he was really little, and instead of the character dying, get tired, he would be so afraid of them dying. He didn't want them to die, and he would just knock them over so they, before they die, they would just like get out of the game.
Just
right?
punch them straight off the portal.
Yeah.
Watch them go
Yeah,
flying
exactly.
across the room.
So that was because of that, we prototyped. We did a lot of things to try to do a posable character. right? Because
Yeah.
Yeah, the
why don't you do
articulated.
posable characters? So there's a whole lot of reasons, and one of the reasons was, well, how do you read the character if there's no tag? Like the tag can be really small, right? Like the trap tags are like itty bitty, they're
Oh
like a couple
yeah.
millimeters, right? But there's an orientation to them too. That's why they have to be inserted into the trap portal, which has its own
The slot.
slot, and it's basically another coil. So anyway, if you have a character that's posable, then where do you put it? You put it on 1 foot, I guess, but then it has to be in a very defined space. Because there's so many issues with it that we just couldn't figure out a way to make that work. And then once you give the audience a little bit, they want the whole world, right? Like once you have a posable figure, they're well, it's not posable enough. You want whatever it is. We actually had spent a lot of time making joints and making characters. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was probably whatever his name is, Chop Daddy. I think we
Yeah,
made him.
I've seen some prototypes of Head Rush as a articulated figure, Crypt King as an articulated figure, and I remember watching an interview with you. I think I know you way too well, but so I remember watching an interview where somebody asks you about articulated figures, and like you've dabbled in the idea, which you have, but yeah, as you were saying, that's kind of hard to. Yeah, it's kind of harder to do than
Yeah, so
as
there's
simple as it seems.
there's the technical side of why we didn't do it, but there's also the artistic side, which is, as I said before, you want to get the character in a split second, right? And you want to see like, oh, this is a cool character. So the pose, I mean, you can tell she's gonna ram something, right? Like, so there's a suggestion of that, where if she's a posable figure and she's just, like a, action figure just standing there, it doesn't have the same impact, right? We can never get it into a cool feel of the character. So now every character is going to be like a regular action figure, right? So if you don't know the character, like if you know what Batman is, it might be really cool to see Batman, posable figure. But I don't know, and there's just a lot of issues with posability. But we did try. We
Yeah,
tried
and I mean,
everything.
like, if people want posable figures, there's the Mega Blocks.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know
Yeah.
if you've seen this guy, but I remember looking at this guy's like blog about tearing apart like the Mega Blocks figures and just other articulated figures, shoving the joints into Skylanders and making his own articulated stuff.
Oh no, that's great.
No, and like I just think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And I tore apart. I boiled a couple Skylanders alive because I wanted to tinker around with that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I have a couple I want to show just because it's funny.
You are so destructive.
Oh, absolutely. But that's the fun part, just tinkering around with this stuff because, now I own it. I'm the one who bought it. I get to tear this stuff apart. We got the poor, get this on camera, the poor Drobot.
Oh no.
Oh my god.
We've got, I've just got this whole
Brutal.
bag. We got, like, the deformed bottle from, Pop is from boiling it alive, and now it's just
Oh
all
my god.
wonky and stuff now. We got the poor base of just 2 legs. I was talking about taking a hatchet or a sledgehammer to Tree Rex. That's he's actually a lot more in pieces than that.
Yeah, right.
But it really allowed me to kind of see like all the internals and stuff, like
Yeah.
see how you guys had to like put this together. And I remember having like these like erasers of Skylanders that you would like put together and you could like take apart, and that's what it reminded me of.
Right.
But there's what's left of that one. I've got just so many destroyed ones, and then we got Papa's, who's just poor thing. I'll do something funny with them eventually, but I love to show off the whole collection of just dead things.
Yeah, it looks like my desk at TFB. definitely did a lot of that because a lot of times when you have a pose that didn't quite work out well, I would just cut the arm off and rotate it up, glue it, just throw it, glue it back together, just so that see like is that cool, is that better, like
Yeah.
like physical hacking sometimes is a lot better. There's also the issues of fitting in the box. It was such a pain. Sometimes it's just don't fit. We can't change the box. It has to fit in a container ship, and so many has to fit in there, and so like the box can't be once it's determined, we can't change it. So yeah, the design around it. So sometimes the pose is really hard to get. You want to like a really cool, like extreme pose, but like nope, you got to bring it back. Otherwise, the character is gonna be really tiny, right?
Yeah, I
So
remember
we 3D printed all that out.
one of your examples of having to like kind of shrink things down was with Chop Chop. Like I saw so many different poses with him in a couple of interviews, and like it's I don't know what it is, but all the prototypes where there's sandstone or whatever, and they're all in these awesome poses, and I'm just like, we should have had that, but obviously there's all these limitations and whatever. But I think it's really cool how the Series 1 Chop Chop had this pose, and that eventually became the Series 2 as well.
Yeah, all the Series 1 SSA characters, we did not model so we did all the game. But for the toys, we had another company because we didn't know how to do any of this stuff, right? So they modeled the characters and then they posed it and prototype and made the toys. So SSA was really difficult. There was just so many characters that when we got it back, it's like this looks nothing like the dude, and I kind of have to do a lot of feedback. So a lot of characters I'm still not happy with either the pose or the likeness of it. And by Giants, we took that over. It's like, forget this. We're gonna use our game models. We actually, model in high res, right? But by the time we get to Trap Team, at least, we did PBR, so we had the high res. But anyway, we model the characters and then I pose them in, so here's how it works. So we have the high res from ZBrush, and then we make a low res, and then we have a rig, and then that's like a temporary rig, and then I would pose it so that it fits in the box, and I tried a bunch of poses to see what might fit, right? And then we 3D print it out. We put it physically in the box to make sure it does fit, because sometimes it doesn't, even though it should on paper or on computer, but just for whatever reason just doesn't work out well. Or sometimes you put it on, it's like that's way too small. Like it looks fine on the computer, but when you actually do it, it's like, no, we gotta change the pose. And then that gets, once we got the pose that's good, then we give it back to the modelers, like, okay, make that toy, and then we make the sculpt all the details and everything, and then we get that prototyped, and then comes back as you saw one of those unpainted kind of things, and then we use another program to figure out all the paint jobs, and and we can render it, and we can turn it around and look at it and stuff. So it was quite a production. It was a lot of work. But all I'm trying to say is the SSA characters, a lot of the characters are not one-to-one with the game, I feel like. By the second game, it's a lot closer.
Yeah. And do you have any of those like old models or whatever still? Or are those locked away in the vaults?
You mean 3D models?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I should have kept it, but no. Nope.
Some people like on ArtStation have released like the model for like Robo and Wildstorm, and now people are 3D printing them because I don't know if you know this, but those two are the most expensive ones. Robo I think it's like $500,
which character is that? That's the
robot
archer.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's so bad to the point where I'm actually gonna contact, because I've got all these connections, I'm gonna contact and try and see if I could get some leftover stock that hasn't gone to like a landfill or something.
Let me look to see. Hold on a second.
Oh man,
this is great.
Yeah, I have to 3D print up this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this pose. It took a while to get the pose right, but like yeah,
You can
I
kind
was
of see the
pleased with.
droopiness too. And that's actually a
Yeah,
lot different from the actual one. Like his finger actually goes into the drill to add support to it. I don't see
yeah.
that there. And obviously like the
Man, you
bowstrings.
know your stuff. Yeah, that's exactly why, because we needed to support that. That would have
Yeah,
not
because you see
really
it there, it's kind of
been.
drooping down.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's droop. This is also a different. This is 3D printed, so it's not the actual plastic. The actual plastic droops even more when there's too much weight and something
Right.
really thin.
Actually,
Yeah.
I have my own 3D printed one that I've like just painted and whatever. Because again, $500 for Robo is kind of insane, right? But I've like 3D printed my own, and like
Oh wow,
I got like, unfortunately some things broke off because my printer's not the greatest, but
that looks great.
yeah. And then I
Uh,
actually have one more thing that I wanted to show you. So you were talking about like poses and stuff, right? And in
mhm.
Superchargers, there's so many characters that were in the files, whatever, that never got actual figures, and this is one of them. Now the base of this one was not made by me. It was made by another talented person in the community, which I got to show you their work.
Mhm.
Taylor makes some awesome custom Skylanders, and you know, so I have a little bit of experience with like doing all the poses and trying to like make sure it looks right while
Cool.
also portraying the character as what it is, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you got Bull Train here, who's trying to charge up, and because he's that bull. So I
Awesome.
wanted to portray that
So,
like raging bull kind of thing.
so this was a character that you found hidden
In the files, yes.
files
Yeah.
somewhere, and then you printed it. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So this I've got another one that I'm modeling right now, which is gonna look a lot higher quality than this one. But yeah, like I just wanted to show this off because I really like the creative aspect of this stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you know I think it turned
Yeah,
out really good.
it's always great to kind of tinker with your hands, right? Like it's so easy and flexible to tinker on the computer, and then you end up just doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the most compelling things about Skylanders is you get to work with your hands and actually touch something. That the tactile nature of things is really important
Mm-hmm.
on the design of the character. You'll see that a lot of characters. What's that name? The rock dragon from the first game.
Bash.
Bash has all the little nubby things on the back.
Yeah.
The whale with the arms has like nubby things, right?
Thump
Bump
back
back?
or
Yeah, thumb back. And the what you just show that gold lion with the shield, two had like all these spiky things, right?
yeah.
Those kind of things are very inviting to touch, right? Like when you see that on a table, you
Yeah.
want to grab and touch it, right?
Excuse me.
Like that's a very intentional design, right? Like if you see it on the table and you want to pick it up and touch it, or you see it on the on the store, you want to like, oh, I like there's something really tactile, like really primal, right, about how humans are. Like you just want to pick up things, especially things that are this size, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are really good sizes of things that as you know primitive humans, it's like you have a lot of things that size you want to pick up, right? Like food, rocks, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so that all those things are just so cool to handle and to touch. So yeah, that's one of the really great things about making these things is like I miss that having physical things to touch all the time.
Yeah. And one of my last-ish questions for you, if you ever got the call that they were making another game, would you return?
Um, that's an interesting question. So if they're making another game, they don't need me, I think, because I think they'll just capitalize on the old characters that people love, and that's probably why people will want it, is my guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I doubt that would get the call. If I do get the call, I think it would depends on what it is. Like I can't
Yeah.
answer that, right? Like who's doing it and what
Right.
because I want to. If we're gonna do it again, I would like to do it right. And you know, Skylanders it's really old now, right?
Yeah.
It's been quite a while. The teams are not the same. The companies are not the same. I'm not with Activision anymore.
You're working with
So
Roblox now, right?
right. So it depends on what it is they're looking to do. But my guess is that if they bring it back, they probably see money signs,
Yeah.
and they probably just want to reboot it. And
Yeah.
and people like you guys will probably like, oh my god, my favorite character, blah blah blah, instead of here's a whole bunch of new characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my guess anyway. But
No, like I'd really like to like if they ever wanted to make like a seventh game, which there were plans to, and obviously things didn't work out, right? If they wanted to do one, I would really like to see like obviously there's a lot more to it than just saying, oh, I want to see you come back around, right? But I like your art style, like I've said previously, is just so beautiful, like, and it's so all over the place, but so
yeah.
constructed, and I can't describe it. And I
Well,
just,
thank you. I think that's just how my scatterbrain works. But yeah, thank you for the kind words. But I think it's one of those things I've been considering over the years that I just have a hard time finding the time and the energy. Like one of the things I wanted to do is like do a background on every character, right? Like kind of some of the stuff I talked to you guys about, like just do a deep dive into every character and show all the concept art, for it and with reasons I chose this or that when we tried this, and kind of backstory of how it was made, how it was designed, and how the toys was made, kind of thing. I think would be kind of cool. Another thing I thought of doing, which kind of tied into what you just asked me, is well, what if I just made more,
mm-hmm.
make more Skylanders, like for no reason but to like just have fun and you know, uh, whenever I retire or something, when I have more time, maybe I'll just start a YouTube thing where I like design characters, right? Design
Well, you do the stuff with like the
Skylander
robots and
kind of
stuff
thing.
too, like
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, I
that'd be
make a
awesome.
lot of things, so it's all fun for me. But I definitely think I do get fan mail here and there, and obviously you guys, there's a community that
Oh yeah.
that that's out there that's interested in some of this stuff. So yeah, maybe I'll in the future just do a Skylander channel of making more. See what I would do for the game, right? Like just design one character at a time and just do a whole bunch of like videos of speed painting videos or whatever and talk through the design of
Oh,
things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and
that'd
like
be great.
kind of on the community aspect, like I'm well versed with like everybody, if you wanted to meet people or if you wanted to just engage with the community and whatever, I'm pretty sure everybody would be all about it too. And I obviously you'd want to keep that balance of like not trying to be overloaded with questions and like super overstimulated about it, but that's when you could just turn off your device.
Yeah,
So,
maybe I'll leave it to your fan base then to just if there's any specific questions you want to know, I'll be happy to do this again. Um, Deep dive into a character, and I'll try to dig up some
oh my
old
gosh.
concept art or something. Because I think one of the character designs, um, like I said in the beginning, I think I said it that people ask like, "Oh, where'd you get your ideas?" Kind of thing. Um, I don't just, you know, I don't just wake up with the idea. It's work.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, most artists work that way. There's a few gods out there that just kind of wake up with just have an idea and they put it on paper and it's perfect. But unfortunately for me, I go through iterations. I draw a whole bunch of ideas, trying to find the twist to it, trying to find something special, and that process isn't easy to explain. It's not like I can just say, well, here's the 10 rules of design Skylander, right?
Oh yeah.
But I think as a character, I could probably walk through some of the old concept. Is like, well, this one didn't work because A, B, C. Now, so I tried this. Here's the next drawing, and this one kind of worked, but I didn't like this part. So I drew the third one, which then I pulled in this from this other concept that didn't work, but I like that sword, so I put it over here. You know, stuff like that. I do a lot of that, and that might be kind of interesting to kind of walk through a design that might make more sense than trying to explain where I get my ideas.
Yeah, just doodling.
Yeah.
I know.
This has been amazing.
Oh, absolutely, that too. Like, I'm still kind of like, how the hell did I be able to meet you? You know, like, but one of the biggest things is just putting yourself out there. Like, I've got so many questions. Like, how do you get into contact with these people? You just gotta contact them. Like, you gotta find them. You just throw out your name, throw out what you do, and sometimes you'll get an answer.
I think it's easier than you think. At least with Skylander folks, we're all pretty easygoing, and we're reachable, right? So I think anyone that worked on the Skylander series, if you really want to, talk to them about game design, animation, music, whatever it is, I think those guys will be really easy to get a hold of, and they'll be more than happy to.
Well, I see people like Lorne Balfe. I think that's how it's pronounced, right?
Yeah.
Like I
don't know who that is.
So he's the person who did the music for Skylanders, except for like Trap Team, who did like stock music here and there and whatever. But like he's out doing things for like major movies now. It's like I don't know if I can contact this guy. I mean, if I can get into a call with Lorne Balfe and Hans Zimmer and talk about the music, that'd be awesome. I mean, I think it's cool, kind of going back to that, because we talked about this before recording. You did the SSA theme one time for one of your videos, and that's awesome. Like, I love music, I love art, like just everything art and creating things is just...
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned this, I think it was before we started recording, but I would strongly encourage people that are listening to this right now, if you're inspired by Skylanders or any kind of thing that you love, I would strongly encourage people to create, just start creating, because I think we're predators, right? Like predators are lazy because you use a lot of energy, then you just kind of just a lion sleeps all day long, right? So I think it's a easy habit for all of us to get into. I do all the time, like just kind of get too lazy. You just want to consume, right? Consume art, consume music, movies, whatever. You just watch shows all day long, watch people play video games, whatever, right? But I encourage you to kind of all go out and just create stuff once in a while, right? At least. And it really doesn't matter what it is. I think it helps your mind. At least for me, I know if I stop creating things, I get a little crazy, and things just don't quite sit right. I can't explain it, and there's like this itch I need to. So I think for all the people that are listening right now, I strongly encourage you to you always want to be a writer, start writing. Like whatever, right?
I mean, like what's the downside of it? I mean, if you have the time and you have the motivation, just do something, And I can't talk about this, because like parts of this will be cut out because we haven't announced it yet. But the game that me and Jesse are working on, it just strived from Taco Bell. We went to Taco Bell one time. And we were just like, wouldn't this be cool? And we found the people and the talents to just throw it all together. And I mean, I really want to show you some pictures of that whenever all the recording stuff is done, because it's beautiful. And just to think that just some kids with a passion,
Yeah, especially these days, like it's easy to, there's platforms, right, that you can post stuff in and get involved with the community. But there's also like things that are if you don't know how to do something, you can find out how to do learn anything for free. So easy nowadays. So the barrier to entry is nothing. You just start. So yeah, go make stuff. That's I if you're inspired by Skylanders, go make something that you want to make.
Yeah.
Wise words from a wise man.
Oh, absolutely. Very, very wise.
I feel like we're kind of wrapping this up, so I feel like we'll put the lid on the cookie jar here. And it's been awesome to be able to talk to you, dude. Like, I keep saying, but you're a big inspiration to me. I'm a big fan. I mean, I've got all of your stuff all over my room, right? And I've spent a lot of money to not care at this point, but like it was awesome to finally be able to meet one of the creative minds behind, just these plastic figures at Toys R Us.
Yeah, it was great meeting you guys, and I'm
Thank
very
you.
happy to hear that there's a new generation which I didn't expect to be into this. Like it's
I
I
actually
expected
want to.
the
Oh,
I
sorry.
expected the 20, 30-year-olds to be like nostalgic and want to collect all this stuff again, but like for you guys are younger to kind of stumble onto this old game now. It's pretty
I
crazy.
popped out of the womb and I was just like Skylanders.
Yeah, I guess so.
I've been there. I've been there since the very beginning. And I'll be here until they finally decide to throw it away, I guess. But they love money, so I don't think they could do that quite yet. They got to capitalize off of nostalgia too.
Oh yeah, like there's a market that they could tap into. Like definitely, it's just a matter of whether they do or don't. And honestly, I'd be
I
really
think
yeah.
They don't do anything half-ass, right? Like, so it has a. They're not interested in making a few $1 million, right? Like, it has to be a huge thing.
Oh yeah.
So they'll have to believe that they can make a lot of money in order for it to come back. I think.
Well,
It has to make some business sense that is as big as, you know. Because at one point at Activision, we were like, there was Call of Duty and there was Skylanders. Like that was the big money maker, right? So, I don't know if I guess I'm not sure if it's ever going to happen, just because I don't know if they can figure out a way to believe that they can make that much money, right? Because in SSA, the
Yeah.
reason that SSA happened, um, it wouldn't have happened if Activision had the idea. It was that we had the idea. We were being challenged, like, "Oh, can you guys start thinking about we peripherals at the time, right? Like that was really big. All the we related things, like that's where it started." And then we took it into this, like, well, what if we made toys, kind of thing. And then by the time the big wigs at Activision saw it, it was already like they get it, right? That magic moment thing that we talked about. When they experienced that, they knew it was a hit, right? But if they had saw it earlier, or if they had thought of the idea, it would have never happened. They
well,
left it to a studio that has never made games, have never done any of this stuff before, never done toys, right? Never done electronics, never done any of this stuff before, and trusted that a group of, at the time, the SSA, we probably was like, like 40 people maybe, trusted a very few number of people they believe that we're gonna make that much money. It was just nuts.
yeah,
And it all started from there.
yeah.
So yeah, for Skylanders to come back, Activision will have to really believe, or whoever owns it now will have to really
Microsoft.
believe.
Yeah.
It might be, yeah, it's probably Microsoft. They'll have to believe that it's gonna be the next big thing, probably the next big kids thing, I assume.
Yeah. Well, as if they ever come back, at least they know they've got my wallet.
Oh, absolutely.
They got mine too.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest thing is like, with the community still around, if they were to do that again, they'd probably, they did this, back in the day, they shipped stuff out to people to do like reviews and whatever. And right now, like me and a couple other people are like the biggest in the Skylanders community. We may be the people that they just send that stuff out to. So maybe our wallets are safe.
Well, I would say
Depends.
they're not in, well. Take this in the spirit which is it's intended. I don't know how big the community is right now that's really into this Skylander thing right now. Let's just say it's 100,000. That's not enough for Microsoft or Activision to even care about. That's nothing, right? Even if they get $1,000 from each person, that's nothing. They will look at like, is this going to be the next blah blah blah, tickle me Elmo kind of thing, right? Like the next big hit for that year, at least, right? That means the entire, 8 to 12-year-olds or something like that, which is kind of what SSA was, right? So I don't know if they would care about the community, because unless the community is really, really big. So that's just my gut instinct. I don't know if I'm right, but it's just, because it's so much money to sink into making this. Not only making a game that's good, but the amount of money it takes to make toys, all the molds and stuff is just insane amount of money. So whatever they sink in, they got to get like 10 times back, right?
And kind of on that, like this could be them testing the waters. This could just be a one-off thing. I don't know if you've heard, but they're actually doing U2s, which are like Funko Pops, right? They're doing that for Skylanders, and that's coming out early next year, which is like the first thing that the community's seen in almost 10 years now.
So it's a Funko Pop, or is this something similar to that?
It's like little figurines of like movies or whatever. They're like bobblehead kind of things. I don't have any.
So a little insight on that has nothing to do with them. That's a licensing thing.
Right.
So they just, whoever the toy company is, they pay Activision a certain percentage or a certain amount of money to use
licensing.
So that doesn't mean that Activision's all of a sudden interested. They're just like, well, they're gonna give us free money,
Yeah.
And they taking all the risk, right? Like Activision's not making the toys.
Right.
They're not. There's no risk involved. They just get the money. So that I wouldn't take that as a sign that they're all of a sudden interested.
I mean,
unless it really took off and they go, hey.
Yeah, people are buying figures now, and that's why, that's why I was kind of with the theory that they, maybe they could be testing the waters with it because, it's a figure-based game. If they're going to sell figures of it, I mean, obviously they're not going to do anything. Like, the figures aren't going to work in the game probably, so it's not like there'd be more to buy them other than just to have them on your shelf or whatever, which, let's face it. But, I just... maybe something could come of it, maybe not. I'm not Activision. I wish I could know this kind of stuff. I wish I could see into the future and, prepare my wallet, start saving now.
Yeah. I mean, Skylander ended not because it didn't make money. It just didn't make as much money as it did before. And it's what they needed to have they don't make anything small, right? Like they make big things.
Right.
So that's why I'm like cautious and getting excited about, stuff like that. Because I think it will have to make some really good business sense for all the higher ups to kind of understand that this is going to be the next big thing. They're not going to make, if something makes like $5 million, they're not interested in that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've also thought about it, right? I'm sure you know this, but Toys for Bob is now in Indie Studio again. So, like, if they have, like, the resources from, like, Activision, Microsoft, and all those people, like, I could totally see them just doing a one-off thing with Skylanders again. Because, I mean, I see interviews all the time with a whole bunch of the people who did. Like, a lot of them seemed like they'd be all for doing that whole thing again. And,
Yeah, I mean, I think the developers would love to do it. Right? Like we all had a blast doing it. It was really amazing and really fun. Like I said, I don't know if there's a place for me in particular, but I think everyone else on the team would love to work on it again. Um, Whether or not they can, there's a lot of people moved on and they're in different companies and stuff, so it might be hard to get the original band back together.
yeah, that's
But you
kind
could
of.
probably have enough of the core people to kind of do it justice. Um, yeah, so hopefully that's true. So I'm not worried about that part of it. It's everything else that's the problem. It's really the money is the problem. Someone's got to pay for it and take the risk, right? They're gonna have to sink in so much money, not only on producing the toys, making the game, but also marketing. Again, like that's some insane amount of money, right? That has to get all made back before they make any profit.
And one of the things that, kind of an Activision staple at this point with like microtransactions, it's kind of scary, if this ever does come back, will it be the figures or are they going to do like some sort of like microtransaction? But my thing is like the whole game was like based off of, the magic of putting the toy on the portal, I for like my 4-year-old brother or just, a lot of people in general, the magic was taking your portal, slapping it on, and then watching it in the game. I don't think, I think Skylanders as itself, if it didn't have, like, the figures and whatever, I do not think it would have been as big as it was.
No, it definitely wouldn't.
Because it's just another children's game dungeon crawler kind of thing. But
yeah, and it was like one of the first games to really utilize any sort of RFID technology to make a toys to life sort of thing. And I don't know, I'm trying to think of a few things to say because I kind of have something I do want to say though. I feel like it'd be kind of harder to get like the current like generation of kids like to see the magic in it because so many of them just they're under constant exposure to technology like smartphones and tablets, all that stuff. Like they might not see the magic like kids did like 10, 15 years ago. So there's that. And that's kind of unfortunate as well. And there also hasn't really been anything Toys to Life related for like a very long time.
I mean,
The only thing
Amiibo here and there, but
yeah, but the thing is, those were mainly used to like unlock optional features in most games that they had support in, and they're more display pieces than anything.
I mean,
yeah, I think kids today, well, when SSA came out, kids had tablets and phones, and
Oh yeah,
I have kids, and so they were already doing all that. But I think the Toys of Life was new enough and novel enough and just cool enough, and and like we're talking about the magic moment was like uh, just really eye opening, yeah, for kids and as well as adults. That I think the magic will still be there, is my guess. And I think kids will, there's always going to be a certain amount of kids like us types that love collecting stuff. I have a collection of a whole bunch of crap. So
same here. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of kids that love collecting, right? Like whether it's, rocks or Skylanders or stamps
Pokemon
or
cards.
Pokemon cards or whatever it is,
yeah,
shoes. There's kids into everything, right? Like that's a mindset that starts at a fairly young age, right? Like the age where they start playing with the Skylanders all the way up to adults, right? I'm still collecting stuff. So there's definitely a certain amount of people that are naturally just want to kind of hoard and collect everything, right? Like
And I feel
all
like,
that they can.
for kids, that's their like first step into like actual ownership. That's their first thing that they can call their own and have to themselves, right?
Yeah, and these things were like great value, right? Like at the time where these were like $10, I think, which it was like really cheaper than regular toys like this, but also you get a lot of value in game. And it's like
Oh
it's
yeah.
like just seeing my kids and all the kids that are basically, you buy a toy, they play with it for like 15 minutes and they just never again.
Right.
And these things are a little different, that they can be played, um, both physically and digitally in game for hours and hours and hours, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
So
great.
anyway, I hope that I think there's still a market for the kids. I just think that it's more of a question of money. Like, does Activision, Microsoft, whoever, do they believe that if they spent 200 million dollars, are they gonna get you know uh, 500 million back? Right? Like, that's really whatever the math turns out to be. I don't. Those are just random numbers I pulled up, right? Like, but they basically have, it's a risk. They're gonna have to put in so much money, and they have to really believe it's all coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Investments and stuff. Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like with nostalgia and stuff, I feel like they'd have that kind of like what they did with like Spyro, but I just don't think it would be as big as Spyro.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they come back and everybody around the world is all about it again.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. It's also, yeah.
no, what are you
I'm
saying?
sorry. I was also gonna say, like, another thing too is, like, you introduced me to the series like back in, like, what, May of 2023. I knew about its existence then, but I never like took enough interest into it to actually like really like just see what it was.
Yeah. No,
And then
your story's really
yeah.
interesting too, Jesse. Like, anyway, I don't know if you watched any of the other like podcast episodes. I know you said you skimmed through one of them, but how it happened, right? So Jesse's only been like a fan for a year, right? And he's already, made a name for himself because the mobile games, right? Lost Islands, for the longest time on Android wasn't, playable again because, you need like specific files, data, OBB, all that fun stuff, right? And he managed to compile everything together and basically make it working for like emulators and older Android phones again. And he kind of made a name for himself for a while because, hey, now people are able to enjoy like not Cloud Patrol, Lost Islands again. I mean, that's one of them. Cloud Patrol is another one that has been preserved now. So
Awesome.
Yeah, it was preserved before Lost Islands on Android, but how I did it, I'm not going to go into massive detail about it because I don't know, because I don't want to be like super overwhelming. But basically, I used an existing dump of the game that was for Apple devices, and there's stuff in there that helped me like lead to getting the Android files. And there's like a database file in there, like a part of the save data, which basically would tell the game where to look for downloaded data to load. And once I got the files, I just changed that stuff in the database, and it just worked.
and wasn't there
That's
like some
awesome.
files from Activision servers that are still up?
Oh yeah, that's how I was able to download all the Android data. So Activision, they never took their stuff down.
That's funny.
They took down some of the servers, which would the game would have to connect to regardless. But the files themselves, no, they didn't take those down. So
That's funny.
and like in like one of the files which the game creates whenever you download data, it has like all the URLs in it. It's just cached in there, which is like amazing to know. Because like if it weren't for that simple thing, I don't know when we'd get Lost Islands on Android again. Definitely not officially, but yeah. I'm just really happy because the community gets to be able to play that game again. I personally never. Yeah.
Dude, I remember like how excited everybody was too. It was like almost a new game dropping because everybody was coming back to it, and a lot of people, didn't get to play it when they were younger too. So I just remember whenever you did that, like there were so many people coming back, like this whole wave of people. It was beautiful to see. So
Absolutely. And I remember getting like completely bombarded by people in the comment section of the video, just like still needing help with it and just like thanking me for doing all this. It's like, to me it didn't feel like much, but I'm surprised at how big of an impact it had on the community for the time that it did.
yeah.
And I'm just happy about it. I'm happy I was
That's
able to bring
awesome.
I'm happy I was able to bring something back, even though it was only in the community for like a few months at that point.
Yeah. See, there's
And
talents
That's
down
so
here
cool.
too.
Yeah,
and
it's so cool.
and also like that kind of helped Shojiki as well, which is getting himself out there as well, because we were able to get into contact with like one of the biggest, if not the biggest, currently active Skylanders YouTuber in the community, Boombringer. So, and then he made video on it, and then that's when everything went crazy.
Yeah. Even
Sorry,
though we're a smaller community, there's so much. When something small happens, it's so big in like reality, I guess. Or I guess it's just a lot of people who want something new with this game, so they'll just take anything at this point. But yeah, no, like I remember how excited everybody was for Lost Islands. This year we did Superchargers iOS 32 and 64 bits now good.
Mostly 64-bit. It is also a whole nother story on its own, and we were able to preserve the 64-bit iOS versions because of the Apple TV version.
Yeah,
It
the files are
sounds
still up there, right?
Yeah, because those were hosted on Apple servers. For some reason, they just decided, oh, we're gonna put this on Apple servers. It was a pain to figure out, but we eventually were able to figure out, just like doing enough file system digging and just finding where everything is stored. And then that can also be used to help with preserving other games.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about it publicly. It's been mainly just kept in the Skylanders reverse engineering server. But at some point, I do want to document it, because it would help other preservationists. So sorry for rambling.
Nah, you're good.
Because I know it's not about me.
Nah, dude. I'm milking you for content. It's about me.
Either way, though, I'm just happy about just Skylanders just being just with the community that we have right now. It could be a lot smaller, but yeah, I'm glad with the community that we have, like the size of the community. It's not like overwhelming, but it's not like super small.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much you guys care, and that's amazing.
Well, like
I'm still I'm looking at this thing right now. I'm still like stunned that you knew about the finger and why we did it. Like I'm just like, you guys know this stuff inside out.
well, of course it's, deeply affected my wallet, but dude, this game means so much to me and my family. My parents are split apart, but through all of that, like this game really kept me and my brother, to not focus on all the, dark things that were happening in our lives, And I know so many other people who are in kind of the same boat. This was their kind of like the light to get them through the day, the light at the end of the tunnel, There's the magic with this game.
If everyone needs a escape, right? And I feel bad for people that don't have a strong passion in things, but yeah, I mean, I think most people do have a strong, or at least everyone that's listening to this has a passion, at least for Skylanders and probably for a lot of different things. And that's great.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you guys are keeping this alive after so many years, it's on behalf of the Skylander team, we're honored and thank you guys. This is crazy. We never expected this,
Well, again, I've said before, I really care about history, history as in like, what they teach in the books, and just, about games and stuff too. I've always loved like old games, I have like a PS2, PS1 down there. I used to own an NES. I really care about older games because of, the limitations that people overcame at the time and were able to make something amazing.
Yeah.
But no, like we really care about this franchise, and even if we can't, make a new game and keep it alive that way, bringing back old stuff or just getting to see people's excitement over something as simple as an old mobile game, it's beautiful.
That's great.
It is. I'm really happy about it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for this. It's been a nice journey back in time, and trying to remember all this stuff.
And thank you for taking the time to be able to talk on our podcast. It was awesome, man. Like,
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, reach out. If you have a hard time reaching out to some of the other Skylander, dev team, let me know. I can probably get a hold of them.
Thank you so much, man.
But yeah,
thank you.
I think anybody you want to talk to, at least on the TFB side, because I know them. Anybody you're interested in talking to, I'm like 100% sure they would love to talk to you. So.
Yeah, and thank you so much for even giving us this opportunity, giving us a chance to, get to know us and all that stuff, and just being able to come on and, like talk about this game that everybody's forgotten about, 10 years ago. But,
right.
It was awesome to get to know, like I said, one of the creative minds behind this, and, just being able to talk about this silly game again after so long.
Yeah.
And just thank you. I mean, thank you and the whole team for making this game, because I'd have so much more money if you guys didn't, but I mean, like, it'd be such a different timeline.
Yeah.
Just one last quick question.
Yes.
Are the toys more expensive now or cheaper now?
Some of them, I mean, like, you got characters like Gilgrunt Trigger Happy, you had to buy the starter pack $70 or whatever at the time for that, but then you've got characters like who went for $20 retail, or like whatever the senseis were. That's kind of when I dropped out of Skylanders back in the day. Like Robo, right? He was like, maybe his adventure pack was like $35, $40 retail, but now his whole thing in box is like $600. Or you've got characters like Chompy Mage. Chompy Mage is getting up there. I think he's about to surpass Robo because he was exclusive to the 5-pack on Amazon, the green one specifically. So he's also becoming very rare. I can't find any, so that's why I said I want to try and get to them, the leftover stock, before they throw it in a landfill, because I do not want to pay thousands of dollars for just 3 characters.
Yeah, at one point I had, I still may have every single one that's made for the ones that TFB did. Like I have some of the rare stuff because I had to review them, and then I just kind of go, hey, can you send me an extra copy when you're done? So I got some of the really rare stuff, but I don't know. One they're all in storage right now. One day I'll display them. I can't find any spare space, spare wall. But
you got the guitars. Those are what matter.
Yeah. Well, one day I'll probably display them out somehow.
Well, if you're ever clearing up space, let me know.
Oh my gosh.
Hit me up. I'd be willing to take some off your hands.
Of course you would, Shojiki.
Don't know until you ask, but
yeah. Well, it was great talking to you guys.
And before you head off, obviously want to end the recording and stuff. But I do got some stuff I got to show you off things. Okay. But I do want to make it quick because it is now midnight for all of us. But yeah, thank you for coming on, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's just awesome.
Thank you.
Try not to get emotional, but this has meant a lot.
Great.
But yeah, thank you guys, at home for watching and giving me all this ad revenue for sitting down for 2 hours and listening to some random people talk about toys. So thank you guys at home. But yeah, that's gonna be it. That's season 1 of the podcast done.
That's a great way to end it off.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye bye, y'all.
See ya.